Daredevil Born Again Season 2, Episode 4. Right away, let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments down below. I thought it was pretty dang good, and obviously we're jumping into some spoilers here, so if you don't want to know them, you should click away now. Now, at the end, Vanessa gets severely injured. I don't think that she's going to make it, and I'll explain why as we break the video down. But also, I do think Bullseye might actually genuinely be trying being the keyword, to be good. And I think maybe by the end of this, we do get a nice little Daredevil and Bullseye team up that results in Bullseye continuing on in the MCU, at least fingers crossed. But let's go ahead, not waste any time. Let's dive into the breakdown. I actually really love how this episode starts off because it's all about Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye. And I love this opening because it really mirrors Season 3, Episode 5 of the Daredevil Netflix series titled The Perfect Game. This isn't the episode where they first introduce him in the Netflix series, that's a few episodes before this, but it's the first time that they actually really dove into his origin. And they showed us in this scene in the Netflix series that Bullseye is very meticulous and is all about precision, which makes sense if you consider that that's what he is really about. That's what makes him so powerful. His precision with his shots, with his knife throwing, with everything. But I love this scene and the scene from the Netflix series because it shows us that this is who he is inside. His cooking is precise. When he makes his bed, it is perfectly precise as well. In the original series, in that episode, he makes sure the cups that he just washed are faced the exact same way. The handles are pointed in the exact same direction. The photos on his wall are perfectly balanced. But in Daredevil Born Again, in this episode, it's actually quite different than the Netflix one, because when he's introduced in the Netflix one and they're going through this scene, it's very somber, it's very dark. The music that follows it is very dark. They're showing us that he is a threat, but in this episode, the music is light, and he's very friendly with his neighbor. He even makes an egg for his neighbor's cat, which is another big sign that this might be a different Bullseye that we're dealing with here, because Bullseye has tortured and killed animals in the past just because he's sadistic, someone who enjoys inflicting pain upon others. And unfortunately, when learning about his origin, we've learned that he has killed many animals as a kid. But this Bullseye in front of us seems very different. He seemingly really likes this cat. He's very nice to his neighbor. And if you notice throughout this entire episode, it doesn't seem like he kills a single person that is not an AVTF officer. And possibly Vanessa, depending on how the next episode goes, whether she survives or not. And I have a feeling she probably won't survive, but we'll get there. But the bottom line is, I think the beginning of this episode is trying to paint him in a better light. In fact, I think that's what the entire episode really does, showing that he's not a bad guy anymore. He was simply manipulated by Fisk at first in the Netflix Daredevil series, and then in Born Again Season 1, he was manipulated by Vanessa. So now he is simply trying to get revenge on them, but at the same time, take out the bad guys. One thing to notice, when he is in his apartment, he is trying to warm up his body, and he's really rotating his shoulder, trying to get all the kinks out of it. This is most likely due to him getting stabbed multiple times by many different knives by Daredevil in Born Again Season 1, Episode 1. It wasn't directly in his shoulder, it was actually in his back towards the right side on his shoulder blade, so that's most likely where that pain comes from. But then we get to the diner, and what I think is one of the most epic scenes that we have seen so far. He goes up to the diner, notice he kind of scopes it out. He looks to his right at first, and then he turns, he's looking around the diner and decides to sit at the bar, probably for very tactical reasons. He can jump over the bar to take cover if he needs to, which we actually see him do in the scene. But he is very kind to the waitress. He seems very happy, and since he is sadistic, he probably is pretty happy because he knows he's about to kill a bunch of AVTF officers. And I love how he gets them there, and this actually tells us that Frank is indeed still on the run, the Punisher. He once again takes a look at his surroundings. He looks to his left and he sees a knife and a fork. He looks to his right and he sees many knives and many forks, so he knows that he can use these as weapons. So he looks around and knows exactly what he's going to do when the AVTF get there, and as soon as he figures it all out, he makes the call. And he says, Frank Castle is there. And this is the task force hotline you can hear her say when she picks up. So of course they know who Frank Castle is because she says, the Punisher? And fun detail I really like, he says, oh, he's got a gun, and he smiles because he knows he's not going to use a gun at all to kill anybody that's about to show up. So he drinks his milkshake in one sip, and kudos to him for not getting brain freeze from that. I also love that he never turns around. He can hear the sirens coming and he sees the sirens and the squad cars pull up and the reflection of some of the diner equipment. He hears and he sees, so he puts his gloves on because it's about to go down. He grabs a toothpick, puts it in his mouth, and then grabs a straw and puts the toothpick in the straw. This is going to be his first strike. The task force enters the diner, and remember, they think they are there for Frank Castle, the Punisher, so they search the whole entire building. They can't find him until they notice the guy at the diner drinking the milkshake does not have his hands up. And I love this scene because when he turns to face the officer, he realizes, oh my gosh, it's frickin' Bullseye, not the Punisher. And he shoots that toothpick right into the officer's eye. And then right after this, you have to go really slowly, frame by frame to notice. But he puts on his mask and then he grabs the silverware to his right on the diner, picks it up, throws the spoon at the officer right next to him. It goes right into his eye. And then the fork and the knife that was a part of that set go into the other two officers. And again, if you go frame by frame, you can actually see he throws all three of them in one direction, and the fork and the knife actually bounce off the wall in the back to go into the back two officers. This is one of Bullseye's specialties, being able to ricochet knives and apparently silverware and really anything, including bullets, off of the environment around him to still get the kill when the angle is not possible. He ricochets two more pieces of silverware, bouncing off the table that somebody is sitting at, mind you, to kill two more AVTF officers. The others realize what's going on finally, and he jumps over the diner. Again, this was a tactical decision because he knew that at some point they would start shooting at him and this would be the perfect cover. Also notice how the AVTF just really doesn't care about the people around them. No, they're not directly shooting them, but they don't exactly care if they get shot in the crossfires. For example, when he jumps over the diner counter, we can see that the waitress who gave him the milkshake is laying down below. And he is still kind. He says that was a great milkshake to the lady who served him it. He then takes the top of a straw holder, ricochets it off the wall to stab the hand of one of the AVTF officers that is going for his gun. And if you notice, you can still see the toothpick that he shot through the straw in his eye. He then pops two forks off the counter to be able to use, and then the dog starts barking at him, and he turns and he tells the owner that dogs at a restaurant are unsanitary. And I'm sure you were like me, very concerned that he might kill the dog. More concerned that he would kill the dog over the person. And again, I think this is a very telling sign of Bullseye. When he was mentally unstable when he was younger, he would kill animals. He also doesn't really show any remorse, a true psychopath, but he chooses not to kill the person or the dog or anybody else on the diner besides the AVTF. And he even says, don't worry, when the guy says, please don't kill me, I'm one of the good guys. And as he says that, he actually sticks the forks into the legs of the AVTF officer, who then informs everybody that it was actually Bullseye that was there, not Frank Castle. So now the whole entire AVTF and Kingpin know that Bullseye is basically hunting AVTF officers and, of course, Kingpin and Vanessa. Now, in case you aren't too familiar with or need a refreshing on Bullseye's story in the Netflix Daredevil show, he was introduced in season 3. He worked for the FBI at the time, and he ends up saving Kingpin's life when Kingpin works out a deal with the FBI, but then when he's being transferred from prison, enemies ambush him and kill all of the FBI members. That is until Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye, shows up and kills everybody single-handedly and saves Kingpin's life. Kingpin then started to slowly manipulate him, and he does some pretty crazy things like killing the girl that Benjamin Poindexter actually liked. This way he could have full control over him. Eventually the FBI finds out that he's been helping Kingpin and they fire him, so this allows Kingpin to take him under his wing and basically get him to do whatever Kingpin wants him to do, which does include making him dress up as Daredevil and going around killing people so he can frame Daredevil for it. Until eventually, by the end of the season and the show, he actually realizes what Kingpin did thanks to Daredevil, and he goes to kill him at his penthouse, but Daredevil is there as well, and we get a Daredevil Bullseye Kingpin fight, which ends with Kingpin breaking his spine. Now, we've already seen his spine get rebuilt at the end of that season, but in the comics it's a little different because he gets an adamantium spine. Now, in the Netflix series, they called it cogmium, which is basically a play on adamantium. So I wonder if they'll ever actually tell us that he did indeed, now that he's in the MCU, get a adamantium spine. But after Daredevil Born Again Season 1, Episode 1, where Daredevil tried to kill him, but no doubt he survived that fall off of the building because of his metal-infused spine, he was sent to prison where Vanessa worked out a deal with him to get him out and ultimately kill Foggy. But again, that resulted in him almost being killed, thrown off a building by Daredevil, and then she completely abandoned him afterwards. So now, in a nutshell, that is why he is after Kingpin and Vanessa. And as we've seen in these episodes, Kingpin and Vanessa know it. And I do also love that before he leaves the diner, he takes a ketchup bottle and squirts his call sign, the Bullseye, on the door. That way, when the cops and the AVTF show up, they know it was him. Because again, he's making it a point that they know. He is basically saying, hey, Kingpin, hey, Vanessa, I'm coming for you, and I'm taking everyone under you out as well. So we get a little BB report after this telling us that there's a big charity fight coming up with Kingpin, but it's really just to distract from other things that are happening, like them transferring all of the highly illegal weapons and of course him laundering money through the charity. But then we get to the safe house where everybody is at that Daredevil, Karen, and our new White Tiger, Angela Del Toro, saved. And there really are some cool scenes here. One is that Karen is video recording testimonies from everybody that was kidnapped, stating that Kingpin is the one that kidnapped them and kept them prisoners. While she's doing this, Daredevil is talking to Jack Duquesne, aka Swordsman, and he once again proves that he is just an awesome guy. He tells him he's not sticking around, but he did give Karen an account number. So basically, this very wealthy man just basically offered his wealth to help Daredevil, Karen, and everybody else. He says, use it whenever you want, when you need it. And he also says, I'm not like you, Daredevil. You are now a symbol of hope for the entire city. And I really think that comes into play in future episodes where we see a bunch of civilians wearing the Daredevil cowls, further showing us that Daredevil truly is the person who is influencing the city. Jack knows that, so he basically says, look, I'll fund you, I'll back you up, use whatever you need, but you are the symbol. So Karen has an SD card with all of the footage that she needs to get to BB. But of course, everybody's looking for Karen, so Angela Del Toro says that she'll do it, but not before having a talk with Daredevil, who calls her over. He grabs her White Tiger necklace that of course belonged to her father, Hector Ayala, and he asks her, you understand the responsibility that comes with this? And I love this scene because it is right here, a superhero talking to another new superhero, basically giving her an Uncle Ben talk, stating, once you wear that amulet, once you put that necklace on, with great power comes great responsibility. With that power, you now have a responsibility to protect the people. And he says, are you ready? And I love her response, were you? Because oftentimes most people aren't ready for that power. They just get thrown into it. And of course they try to do their best. Then, with luck on their side, Kristoff, who was the first mate on the Northern Star, finds them. And in some scenes later, he basically ends up telling them, yeah, it was the Kingpin who was bringing in all of these weapons illegally into New York City, into Red Hook. And he had to specifically sink the ship if Daredevil came on board, and he explained that's what happened. So this is a big win for Karen and Matt, and really the whole city, because they have proof now. They can actually say this was the first mate of the boat. He was there. He did this because Kingpin ordered him to do it, and he can confirm it was Kingpin who was smuggling these weapons, and can also confirm, yes, they were indeed weapons. Fortunately and then unfortunately, he is able to record all of this in front of Kirsten later, but then unfortunately, Kingpin hears about it and sends Buck to take care of it, and Buck does take care of it, killing him and the two officers that were trying to protect him. But luckily, not for him, but for the city, really, luckily he already recorded his testimony. We then cut to Vanessa and Wilson, and he is sending her away so she doesn't actually attend the fight, because as we find out in this episode, it's actually giant bait to try and get Bullseye and Daredevil there at the fight so they can kill them or capture them. Kingpin tried to hide the fact that he's sending her away under the disguise of him needing Vanessa to go and talk to the governor, because she has the power to basically revoke the Red Hook charter that gives them the power to basically do whatever they want and not have any oversight. But Vanessa sees through it. And Kingpin's not exactly shy about saying, hey, I don't want you there. Bullseye's gonna be there. It's not safe. And of course, as we go to find out by the end of the episode, he was totally right. But one thing I love about this episode is the differences in their colors, white and red. And I love that when she meets with the governor, she even says Kingpin is like a white raging bull, which is true. And then Vanessa's kind of the red flag you wave to get the bull to rush at you. In a sense, controlling the bull, which is what the mayor basically says when she meets with Vanessa. She says, I understand how Kingpin is. He's a raging bull. But she really wanted to get a feel on how Vanessa is. And Vanessa basically says, I can't promise I can keep Kingpin under control because he loves the city and he has big plans. And I promise that I love my husband and I can bring out the very best in him. And he loves New York City. So this basically makes the mayor feel more at ease and basically says, all right, fine. I won't back Kingpin alone, but I will back you and Kingpin. Basically stating she has faith in Vanessa, not Kingpin. And I think this is going to come into play big time in future episodes because I'm not sure Vanessa really makes it past the next episode, which will probably result in the mayor going, okay, I'm out. I only trusted Vanessa. I can't trust Fisk. So I am revoking the Red Hook Charter. And I think this might actually be what kind of sets Kingpin off, but we'll have to wait and see on that. There's a lot of what ifs. What if Vanessa dies, etc., etc. Now, like I mentioned before, the fight is really just kind of a ruse. It is a fight that is for charity that Kingpin can basically just take money from, but it's really a trap for Bullseye and Daredevil. Daredevil and Karen realize this, and Daredevil says he's gonna find Bullseye. We also see Bullseye sitting in his apartment, watching the news about the fight. And much like Kingpin wants, Bullseye realizes that he's going to be in a public place where he could kill Kingpin and, of course, Vanessa, who should be there to support her husband. Now, before Matt and Karen actually get Kirsten to come and witness the testimony of Kristoff, the AVTF barges into her law firm and also Matt's as well. This is important to note because they once again explain the status of the AVTF. Kirsten says, I'm gonna bury you guys under so much lawsuits and paperwork if you don't have a warrant. And they state, Safer Streets Initiative that Kingpin did. They don't need a warrant. They don't even have to knock. They can do whatever they want, which I think is going to really backfire against Kingpin. And that's why people start to really turn on him. But then we get to a scene with him and Buck and Mr. Charles. Kingpin is pissed off because Mr. Charles basically is there unannounced. As Kingpin says, you're not on my schedule today, but Mr. Charles is there on behalf of the CIA and Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. And he explains that they had an agreement. Basically, that Kingpin was letting the CIA use the Freeport so that they could get all these weapons to a different country, kind of undetected pretty much. Guinea-Bissau in Africa. So there's clearly a regime there that they are arming with weapons, but Kingpin isn't keeping his end of the bargain. He has kept all of these weapons in New York, and he claims it's because if they put them on another boat to send them off, Daredevil will simply sink that boat as well. So Kingpin is actually lying here because he knows that Daredevil did not sink the Northern Star, although that's who he blames it on. But Kingpin actually commanded that it be sunk if Daredevil was there, so he could blame it on Daredevil, most likely to try and keep the weapons himself, which is what he is doing and what Mr. Charles is complaining about. And although Kingpin says he's going to hold true to his end of the bargain, we do have a shootout here at the end, and that tells Mr. Charles, all right, I can't trust Kingpin. And Mr. Charles did kind of mock Kingpin, and Kingpin got pissed off and even said, do not mock me. But Mr. Charles was really laughing at the fact that Kingpin said that it was his city. And basically Mr. Charles is saying, you think you're in charge because you're the mayor, but above you is the governor who they control, and they've already shown that they control the governor. And I mean, they're the CIA. They monitor everything, and if they step in and decide something is one way, that's how it is. So it looks like in this scene, Kingpin has made an enemy of Mr. Charles, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, and possibly the CIA. Not good enemies to have. Daredevil then goes to the diner where Bullseye attacked the AVTF officers in hopes that he could find something that would lead him to Bullseye. And what's really interesting about this scene, and I really love it here, is that, well, one, he very specifically and very purposefully dresses as an AVTF officer. That way, when he gets to the diner, thanks to all the laws that Mayor Fisk has put into play, he has absolute authority, or an AVTF officer would have absolute authority even over the cops. So that's how he's able to get the cops away. And I love how he's wearing sunglasses in there as well. But then, when he sits down at the bar where Bullseye was sitting, notice that he actually smells something. He smells something that was on the bar. And this is actually the coin that we've seen Bullseye have throughout this episode. He has many of them actually. So Matt actually smells it, rubs his finger on it, smells it again, jumps over the bar to find what he was smelling, which was the coin. And he would know what the smell was. And that's why he was so taken aback by the smell when he first smelt it, because it's actually a coin from the church that he grew up at. So he returns back to Clinton Church. and it's been a while since he's been there. And actually, the last time Bullseye was there, with the exception of in the beginning of this season, he killed Father Lantum and tried to kill Foggy and Karen as well. Now, as he returns, he runs into the seminarian who actually came in contact with Bullseye. We saw Bullseye go to him in a previous episode seeking absolution, and we learn here in this scene a little bit more about what he said. Matt holds up the token and says, I found this at a murder scene today. And the seminarian says, we give these to all of our patrons. It's impossible for me to know who that could have belonged to. But then Matt hears his heart start to ramp up, telling Matt that he obviously does know something very particular here. So Matt says, who do you think it belonged to? Which obviously he thinks of Bullseye. He said that he came in seeking penance, and clearly he did not kill him, even though he held a knife to him, he says, but he didn't kill him. So perhaps Bullseye is on a better path right now. You know, if you don't count him killing all the AVTF and trying to kill Kingpin and Vanessa. The priest tries to tell Matt, look, I obviously can't tell you because it was a confession from a patron. It's not our job to judge whether he deserves grace or not. And Matt actually really resonates with that because that's kind of Matt's standpoint. He doesn't kill. He himself is not the judge with his faith and also with his job. He is a lawyer, not a judge. So this is really a big part of who Matt is. And that's why he says, look, I'm not arguing with you about whether or not he deserves grace, but he's gonna hurt other people, so I need to stop him. And when the seminarian says, well, what are you gonna do with him? He says, not kill him, because that's who Matt is. Unlike the Punisher, he is not the judge, jury, and executioner, but he does bring people to justice in his own systematic way. So luckily for him, through this conversation, he finds out that Bullseye lives right across the street. He lived so close that he could hear the bells and actually watch the seminarian during the day. So knowing that he is so close to the church, he actually hones in with his senses and he can actually hear Benjamin Poindexter across the hall in the apartment hallway, once again being very friendly to his neighbor. And as he leaves, I love this shot because in the beginning, when we see Poindexter, we see him flick a coin into the cup that somebody is holding on the side of the street. Matt, as he's leaving, does the same thing. He flicks it and it lands in a little basket. This is showing us the similarities between Daredevil and Bullseye, how they are kind of equally matched. If anything, Matt actually has the upper hand, having defeated him many times now. But they're showing us they can do the same things here. So Benjamin Poindexter goes back into his apartment, and much like they showed us again in the Netflix series, once he enters his apartment, he usually listens to something to calm himself down, and of course it is a part of his routine. So as he starts to do this, he notices, again, he's very meticulous, he's very specific with everything he does, very precise. Everything in his apartment is exactly where he thinks it should be. So when he walks in, he notices any small details that are not exactly the same. This basically allows him to sense that somebody is there, and he realizes that it is Daredevil. So he takes the CD, old school, out of the CD player and he chucks it at Daredevil. He bounces it, but Daredevil catches it, throws it back at him, and it sticks into the wall. And he even turns around and he looks at it. So again, this is to show us that they're pretty evenly matched and very similar. In fact, when they're fighting, they even throw the exact same punch at the exact same time and hit each other in the head at the same time, showing that their physical fighting combat styles aren't that different either. Now, it seems like Daredevil does have the upper hand in this fight, but also at the same point in time, Benjamin is trying to tell him, I'm on your side, and he sort of kind of just stops the fight and kind of lets Daredevil hit him. Again, possibly showing us that he's not really that bad anymore. Sure, he could turn at any moment, but I do think we ultimately do get the Daredevil Bullseye team up in future episodes. Then the neighbor comes in and says, what are you doing to my darling? Showing that Benjamin has really been kind to her. Unfortunately, he kind of turns on her so he can get Daredevil to calm down, and so Bullseye can explain himself, and he says, one good deed. He says, what that woman had me do. What she had me do to your friend, and that triggers Daredevil. He says, don't you bring him up, not like this, which I found to be a very peculiar line, not like this. This actually implies that Daredevil in another setting might actually be open to hearing Poindexter's side, but not while they're fighting and not while he has a gun to a woman's head and not while he's trying to kill a bunch of people. But Bullseye proceeds to say, I had to get my mind back. And it sounds like he kind of has, but he says one good deed once again. And he says he's going to make things right. He's going to do what Daredevil couldn't do and what he won't do. Kill Kingpin. He's going to make it right, talking about all of the deaths that he has caused to innocent people, including Foggy, by killing the problem that Daredevil and New York City has. He recognizes that Kingpin is the biggest problem for Daredevil, so he's going to kill him for him since he won't kill. So in his mind, in Bullseye's mind, he is going to take out Kingpin kind of as a payback for Foggy, trying to make right in Daredevil's eyes. He killed Foggy, so to make up for that, he'll kill Kingpin for Daredevil. But of course, Matt doesn't believe in killing, so he doesn't want that to happen, and he says, calm down, and Benjamin Poindexter, he says he is calm. I actually do think he's in the right frame of mind, and he simply just wants to make up for what he did before. Now, Angela had the SD card that she needed to get to BB, so he sees her outside of the fight, acts like she's super famous and that his family watches her all the time, and he uses that excuse to take a photo with her, and he slips the SD card into her coat pocket. It looks like Daniel might notice at first, but then he says, oh, I didn't realize I was with a celebrity here on a date, in which she denies both of them, but I do think he probably caught that. He's already been really suspicious of her. We obviously know already that she's under the Kingpin mask, and I think Daniel pretty much knows it as well. So he is really happy to see her because obviously he likes her, but I do think he's suspicious of her. Now, the fight is at Fogwell's gym, and this is the gym that Matt spent a lot of time at as a kid because his father trained there, Jack Murdock. So he spent a lot of time there, and unfortunately, Jack, his father, got killed because he was supposed to throw a fight, but refused to because he wanted to make his son, Matt, proud. He was supposed to throw the match and didn't, so under the order of Kingpin, he was killed. So it was Kingpin who had Daredevil's father killed. And Matt even went back to Fogwell's a lot, even after his father died, to train and release his frustration. And now Kingpin is fighting at that gym. And that is specifically why Kingpin actually chose this location to do his charity fight, because again, he's trying to lure Daredevil and Bullseye there. And of course, he knows that Daredevil is Matt Murdock, and he knows that Jack Murdock was his father and that he had him killed. So he knows that gym is special to Matt. He knows it's going to piss him off by him having that charity fight there, and he knows he's going to go for him. This is all carefully orchestrated by Kingpin, and it shows you just how smart Kingpin actually is. Now, before the fight starts, we see Kingpin getting wrapped up, and what's interesting is he's handed a mouth guard, and he says, no, he'll never lay a glove on me. Kingpin knows how strong he is, and once again, I must remind everybody that in the comics, Kingpin isn't actually fat. It's all supposed to be basically pure muscle. Same thing goes for him in the MCU. He's incredibly powerful physically. And of course, he knows this, and he's been training, so he knows this guy's not going to touch him. Now, unfortunately, Buck gets a call that basically says, hey, they have Kristoff, the first mate, and he needs to take care of him. Kingpin says, you must go take care of him because we can't have any loose ends. Kingpin feels confident that he has Powell there and Cole there and a bunch of task force there to where if Bullseye and Daredevil do show up, nothing's going to happen. They'll be able to handle it. He even says we got to leave a spot open for them to come. So the match begins and Kingpin just proceeds to beat the absolute crap out of this guy, and in some scenes you can even see, like in between rounds, he is just completely shocked that one, the guy he's fighting is so dang strong, and two, it's the mayor kicking his butt. You would think that the mayor would kind of go easy, not really want to show the public that he is capable of such violence, but he does show the public that. And you can see in this scene that they are all absolutely shocked as well. And what's interesting is, again, the color scheme. He's wearing all white and the red blood is getting on him. Vanessa enters and now she is also wearing white. And what's interesting is that when she gets there, she can see that Kingpin didn't hold back at all. And he's just obliterated this guy, might have killed him. And the look on her face tells the audience that she knows this was bad for Kingpin to do. The people in the audience are horrified that Kingpin, one, is so powerful, but two, used that power to really hurt this guy. Yes, it's inside of a boxing ring, but still, he was ruthless about it. And this will no doubt add to the revolt that is coming against Kingpin. Now, against Kingpin's wishes, Vanessa shows up, and she knows that she needs to get on stage and kiss him so everybody can see. They're a unit. She loves him. He loves her. He is a normal person, not this crazy violent guy that they just saw. And also at the same time, she does want to face Bullseye. So when he shows up, killing the AVTF, making his way to her, she tries to stay behind. Kingpin says, get her out of here, and the guards try, but she refuses, and she pulls out the gun that Buck gave her in the last episode, and she actually ends up shooting Bullseye. It seems lucky at first that Kingpin was able to block what Bullseye threw at her, but unfortunately it looks like it was made of glass, and one of those glass shards stuck into Vanessa's head, right in the temple. Now, this is why I believe she's not going to survive. The temple can be highly fatal if you're hit in the temple. It's a highly vulnerable area where the skull is actually the thinnest, and below the skull actually lies the meningeal artery. If the artery ruptures, it causes brain bleed, which can definitely kill you pretty quickly, actually. And judging on what they have showed us, right where that glass went in and all of the blood that is coming out, I don't think that she's going to survive this. And this is probably what sends Kingpin over the edge. At this point in time, Marvel Studios has shown us through trailers Kingpin actually fighting civilians, or at least it seems to be. They are wearing Daredevil cowls, but I think this is the revolt against him. And I think this either comes from him going crazy or will result in him going crazy and finally just letting go and just being Kingpin, the crime boss, not the mayor. Of course, there is a chance that she survives, but again, based on where she was hit, I don't think she does. Now, luckily for Kingpin, Daredevil interfered and stopped Bullseye from killing Kingpin as well, and he takes him out into the street going through the window, and we see both of them run, and that is the end of the episode. Gotta say, I really loved this episode. This episode and number 3 were absolutely phenomenal. The season's phenomenal so far, but go ahead and let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, and please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the other Daredevil Born Again Season 2 breakdowns. And you can also find us on TikTok and Instagram, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.